All right, so ready to dive into some Spanish current events? Grab your café con leche because we're about to unpack today's headlines. You guys know the drill by now. We're going beyond the surface to see what's really going on in Spain.
Yeah, it's amazing how these individual stories can often point to some pretty big trends, isn't it? Like puzzle pieces fitting together.
Totally. And we're starting with a tough one. Over the weekend, 2 women were killed in suspected gender-based violence cases. One happened in Pontevedra, the other in Almería. That brings the total for the year so far to 37.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of the ongoing issue of violence against women. Just to give you some context, since 2003, over 12,281 women have been murdered in Spain because of gender-based violence.
It's a truly horrifying statistic. And to make matters worse, the Delegación de Gobierno contra la Violencia de Género, basically Spain's task force against gender-based violence, has confirmed both these recent cases are being treated as such.
Which unfortunately is not surprising, but it's good they're taking it seriously and investigating.
Absolutely. And it's not just statistics. These are real people's lives. In the Pontevedra case, there's already been an arrest, and the suspect is in pretrial detention.
Which gets me thinking about Spain's VOGen system, the one that monitors potential threats. Can you explain how that works again?
Sure, it's basically a system for monitoring and protecting potential victims. So let's say a case is reported, like that recent one in Burgos where a man murdered his father-in-law. His partner, the victim's daughter, was immediately placed under VOGen protection. Wow, that's intense, but also reassuring that they have that kind of immediate response system.
Yeah.
But how exactly does it help prevent future violence?
Well, one of the things the Minister of Equality has been pushing for is the use of dispositivos cometa, which are basically electronic tracking devices for both the offender and the victim. It helps ensure they maintain a safe distance and allows for faster response times if something happens.
So like a high-tech safety net. That's reassuring.
Yeah, it's not a perfect solution, obviously, but it seems to be helping. According to the minister, there haven't been any cases where a woman under that type of protection has been killed by a monitored offender.
Wow, that's actually a really powerful statistic. And speaking of, before we move on to some lighter news, just kidding, there's more serious stuff to get to. If anyone listening is experiencing domestic violence, you're not alone, okay? The helpline 016 is available 24/7. You can call, email at 016-online@igualdad.gov.es, or even reach them through WhatsApp at 600-0000016. Everything is confidential.
Such a crucial reminder. And on that note, shifting gears a bit, looks like there might be some trouble brewing in the transportation sector.
Oh, yeah, this is interesting. 2 major Spanish unions, CC.OO and UGT, are calling for strikes. And not just small ones. We're talking across multiple transportation sectors. And get this, they're planning to start as early as October 28th.
And they're not mincing words either. One of their biggest concerns, the age of the drivers. We're talking drivers over 67 years old, still on the roads, responsible for getting kids and even the elderly from point A to point B. They're saying it's not even just about the risk of traffic accidents anymore, but actual workplace accidents waiting to happen.
It's a good point. There's a human cost to these jobs that often gets overlooked. So what's the main sticking point in these negotiations?
Basically, it comes down to the retirement age for drivers in these pretty demanding and potentially dangerous jobs. Spain does have things like partial retirement and coeficientes reductores, which are ways to adjust retirement ages based on how tough the job is. But the unions are saying those measures simply aren't good enough.
So a system that sounds good on paper, but maybe isn't working so well in practice. And they're really putting their foot down, huh? What's the strike schedule looking like?
They're planning strikes for October 28th, November 11th, 28th, 29th, December 5th, 9th. And if they don't get what they want by December 23rd, they're going all in with an indefinite strike.
Wow. Okay, that's a pretty clear message. Definitely something to keep an eye on, especially with the potential for disruption that could cause. Talk about tension between employers and workers.
Oh yeah, big time. And speaking of tension, this next story takes us right into the heart of the housing market, where a new ruling on tourist apartments is stirring up quite a bit of controversy.
Yeah, it feels like everyone's fighting for their slice of the tortilla these days.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me more about this housing market ruling. What's the deal with tourist apartments now?
Okay, so Spain's Supreme Court, they just dropped this major decision, and it's kind of a big deal for anyone living in a multifamily building.
Okay, how so? Lay it on me.
Basically, homeowner associations, they've got way more power to put the kibosh on tourist rentals in their buildings now.
Interesting. So less Airbnb shenanigans then.
Exactly. See, it used to be that banning those rentals was next to impossible. Like, you needed every single owner on board. But now, A 35 majority vote in the homeowner association is all it takes.
Wow, that is quite a shift. What was the thinking behind such a major change?
Well, the court basically said, look, this restriction is totally legit. It's completely in line with the Spanish Constitution. They're saying owning property doesn't mean you have a free-for-all to do whatever you want with it, especially if it affects your neighbors.
Right, like your right to swing your fist ends at my nose kind of thing.
Yeah. Exactly. It's about finding that balance, right? Your property rights versus everyone else's right to a peaceful living situation. And honestly, this ruling didn't come out of nowhere. It actually follows a bunch of other moves the government's made lately. Like, remember that proposed amendment we talked about? The one that would require homeowner associations to approve any new tourist rentals?
Yeah, I'm seeing a theme here.
It's like Spain's trying to get a grip on this whole tourism thing, especially in cities where housing costs are already through the roof.
Makes sense, because let's be real, while tourism has its perks, it can also put a real strain on the people who actually call these places home. It's a tough needle to thread. And honestly, this isn't just a Spanish problem either, is it? I feel like we've seen this debate pop up everywhere, from Barcelona to Lisbon to right here in the U.S.
Oh, absolutely. It's a global headache, for sure. And it speaks to a much bigger issue. How do we make tourism sustainable? How do we make sure that the people who live in these amazing places actually benefit without getting steamrolled in the process?
Right, like you want to share the beauty, but not at the cost of destroying what makes it special in the first place.
Huh.
So we've covered a lot today, huh? From the very real dangers women are facing to potential strikes, and now this whole housing market shakeup. It really goes to show just how connected everything is, right? It's wild, right? You start with one headline,
Yeah.
before you know it, you're down this rabbit hole of interconnected issues.
It's true. And that's the thing about these deep dives, right? We start to see how these seemingly separate events are actually all threads in the same tapestry.
Exactly. And it really makes you think, like with these tragic cases of violence against women, yeah, the statistics are awful. But behind those numbers are real stories, real families, real pain. It makes you want to shout, enough is enough.
It really does. And it forces us to ask some hard questions about how we can create a world where women feel safe, where these kinds of things don't happen. And then you've got the potential transport strike, which on the surface seems like it's just about retirement age.
Right. But like we were saying, it goes so much deeper than that. It makes you think about worker rights, safety standards, the economic realities of these physically demanding jobs. It's bigger than just one profession. It's about how we value essential workers, period.
Absolutely. And even this housing market ruling, it's not just about tourist apartments, is it? It's about the tension between global trends like tourism and their impact on local communities.
Totally. It's like trying to find that sweet spot where everyone benefits. Because we want people to experience different cultures and see the world, but not at the expense of the people who live there.
100%. It's a delicate balance.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away from all of this?
That's a good one. I'd say it's this: don't just read the headlines, dig deeper, ask questions, look for the connections. Because understanding what's happening in the world around us, even in a country as far away as Spain, can help us make sense of what's happening in our own communities.
So true. It's all connected. It's about staying curious, staying informed, and never, ever stopping asking why.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, on that note, thanks for diving into these Spanish current events with me. Until next time, folks.
Hasta luego.